Welcome to another episode of the After School Club with myself, Max Pembleton. Now, this episode is truly special to me because Gell, who I'd love to welcome into the studio today, was actually my old PE teacher in secondary school, and his career has progressed and he is now a head teacher in Nottingham. So it's absolutely fascinating and a pleasure to welcome Chris to the podcast. Chris, how you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
To see you.
You too. Thank you so much for joining us on the After School Club podcast.
You're very welcome.
I just want to start by saying, actually, what a proud moment it is for me to have you on the podcast. Obviously, we go way back to school days. And by that, I mean, we didn't go to school together, but you taught me at school and you were my PE teacher. And now fast forward many years, here we are, sat in your office, head teacher of Fernwood School. So yeah, really proud moment, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
So congratulations on the new headship. Obviously, you've been here since September, is that right?
Yeah. September just gone.
Okay.
Just started. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And just tell us, how's it been since you've started here?
Yeah. Very well. Thank you. Yeah, it's gone very well. Fernwood is a fantastic school. I've been really welcomed here by students, by parents, by the teaching staff, and it's a lovely school. Really nice school. It's my first headship, so obviously it's a steep learning curve at times, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's a fantastic school.
Yeah, I must admit, I've always heard good things about Fernwood, and you know, from my experience of working with you, even prior to Fernwood, it's always been really positive. So no doubt you're gonna have a positive impact here at Fernwood. And I just want to speak to you about your first headship. And you come in as head teacher on the first day, must be quite daunting.
Yeah.
Talk us through that first day and how it went and what happened on the first day.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that your first day is a great opportunity to make that big first impression, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I did spend quite a bit of time thinking about what I needed to say and who I needed to speak to. I was quite fortunate that I was appointed. I was awarded the job last February.
Okay.
So from February through to September, I had quite a long run in to start.
You had some good planning time there.
Yeah, which was really good. So I did spend quite a bit of time coming into the school and meeting staff and getting to know people. Mm-hmm. So I felt, even though it was my first day in September, I knew the school reasonably well and had done quite a bit of research and listened to lots of people. Yeah. But the first day when all the staff were in September was an inset day. So I had that opportunity at the start of the day to speak to all the staff in the hall. Yeah. And it's a really important speech, I think, as a first impression with the staff, and an opportunity to kind of share your vision and your values and what you're all about. Yeah. So I did spend a lot of time thinking about that and what messages I wanted to share with staff, because I do think that's really important to get that first impression. Absolutely. And it went well, and had lots of really nice feedback from staff. And I think that's the thing about when I came on interview here, that the values of the school aligned with my own personal values. So it's always felt like a very kind of natural match from my perspective. Great. And then after I'd met all the staff on that first inset day, I then did assemblies for each year group in their first few days. Okay. So I introduced myself to all the students and met them, and again shared values and expectations and a bit about myself. Yeah. Great. Really good. Can you give us a snippet of what you shared with the staff and what you want to achieve as a collective here at Fernwood? Yeah, well, I think as a new head teacher, sometimes there's a pressure that on your first day you stand there and you say, this is my vision for the school. Yeah. But I chose very deliberately not to do that because I felt like at that point I hadn't actually worked in the school officially. So I didn't want to do that and say this is my vision, because I felt like it isn't my vision, it's a collective vision. Yeah. Whilst I'm leading the school, it is a collective vision, and I would always want everybody to be part of that vision. Mm-hmm. But also, I thought it was more important, really, at that stage to talk about my own personal values and what I believe in. So I talked about my own personal values and things like child-centred. Everything we do is about the children, and they're at the centre of all our decision making. Yeah. I talked about the balance between academic success and also developing students and their personal development, and about they're equally important to me. So I talked much more about that and my own values. Okay. As an educationalist, but also as a person as well. I tried to talk about my own personal values. Yeah, great. I think it's really important when you're working closely with anyone to know what the values are as a person, rather than I'm coming in and I'm here to do this. It's a different feel to it. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And I'm really interested to share actually about the interview process of gaining a headship.
it must be, again, quite daunting. And
Yeah.
how does it come about? Can you talk us through the process that you went through before you were successful?
Yes, so the application process itself is challenging. So
Yeah.
it's every school has got slightly different processes, I suppose. But
Hmm.
generally, you have to write your letter, which outlines your vision and
Yeah.
your values and what you'd want to achieve. It's obviously competitive to get an interview. So the first stage is to secure that interview, which obviously I was very fortunate to get an interview
So
here.
is it like any other job? You see it online and you've just applied for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's different websites, but often
Yeah.
they appear on things like the
Yeah.
test website. So yeah, so I saw the school advertising there.
Hmm.
It was a school that I knew of. I knew
Yeah.
it had got a really strong reputation, and it's nice for me. Nottingham's my home city. I was
Yeah.
born in Nottingham. All my family are from Nottingham, so it was really nice for me to be back in Nottingham because I'd previously been working over the border in Derbyshire. So it
Oh,
was
boo.
so it was nice to get back into Nottingham City and I'm
Yeah.
kind of on home turf. In terms of the interview process, it was demanding as you would expect for
Yeah.
for a head teacher's interview. It was 2.5 days, so that there were 2 days when I was here all day, and then I was selected to come back for the final day to do the interview and presentation. But the actual interview process, there were lots of different activities.
Yeah.
So I think on my first morning I was here for about 8:30,
Yeah.
and by 9 o'clock I was doing an assembly in the main hall to, I think it was year 8 students.
Right.
So I did an assembly there, and it was no notes, no
So
PowerPoint.
how does that work then? If it's an
Yeah,
interview, but
yeah,
now you've got all these students in front of you.
yeah,
How do you introduce yourself? Who are you to the
yeah.
students?
I think I had a 5 minute assembly to talk about something significant in my life that had happened. So that
Right.
was kind of the theme of the assembly.
Yeah.
And then I was obviously being observed by senior leaders and
Mhm.
governors, and they were
Yeah.
all making notes as I was doing
Yeah.
my presentation. But in a way, that was a really good start for me because it was something that I was comfortable with and
Mhm.
confident doing, and it was something that was part of my normal kind of weekly routines.
Yeah.
And in a way, that kind of set any nerves to one side
Yeah.
because I was doing what I was confident and happy doing.
Yeah.
Got good response from the students. Hopefully, delivered a serious message, but in
Yeah.
a humorous way and in a human way as well. So
Yeah.
so that was yeah, that was good. So I got off to a good start with that, and then there's a whole variety of different tasks. There were some linked into your understanding of finance and how you'd manage school finances.
Yeah.
Some which are more HR related,
Yeah.
safeguarding. The one that was probably most daunting, I would say, was I had to go and do a staff briefing in the staff room.
Right.
So the staff room here was full of staff, lots and lots of staff, all crammed in to come and see the head teacher candidates, and I had to talk to the staff and introduce myself and talk for 5 or 10 minutes about who I was
Yeah.
and what my background is, and yeah, that was probably the most daunting bit
Yeah. I bet I can
because
imagine.
you're obviously keen to make a good
Of
impression
course. Yeah.
and hopefully gain people's support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Great.
yeah, it was good.
Pretty in depth. It sounds like something off
Yeah.
The Apprentice or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. It was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You don't get to breathe too much,
Yeah.
and as a head teacher, you're being viewed by everybody on interview, aren't you? From the students
Yeah.
to all
Yeah.
the staff, from the minute you arrive in the car park to the minute you
Absolutely.
leave. So
And
yeah,
you're a quite significant size school as well.
yeah,
How many
yeah.
students do you have here?
Just over 1,400 at the moment.
Wow.
Going up to 1,500 in September.
Okay. And
Yeah,
staff numbers?
about 150, I think, altogether.
So you've got some managing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big team of staff and students.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah,
before we get into, how
mm,
exactly you manage the school and the staff and the students,
yeah,
I'm really interested to just rewind to actually when you were teaching me,
yeah,
PE,
yeah,
at the
yeah,
West Bridgeford School.
yeah.
I must say I've got really, really fond memories of you as a teacher.
Oh, thank you.
And what I do remember is obviously sports and football.
Yeah.
That's really all I was bothered about at the time at school. But more importantly, you were always a kind teacher,
Yeah.
and I think everything you did and the way you worked was always kind to the
Yeah.
students, which
Yeah.
above all I think is really important in anything that you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, as a PE teacher all those years ago, did you always have ambitions to become a head teacher? Was that always the plan?
Uh, it's a good question. I would say, I mean, at that phase, that was fairly early in my career. So I think
Mhm.
when I was teaching you, I was probably in year 3 to 5 of my career. So it's
Yeah.
still fairly early. And I've got fond memories of teaching you too, I must say.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, and great memories of the school football team at the time.
Yeah,
we had
yeah.
a fantastic team.
We did have a good team, yeah.
And I used to love that. It was one of my favourite parts of the job.
Yeah,
was being
yeah.
able to take the school extracurricular.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. I think at the time I was being a head teacher. Probably at that stage was a bit too far along for me. It seemed too much in the distance. I definitely realised quite early in my career, even in the first year of my career, that I enjoyed leading things. And when I was a newly qualified teacher, when I started teaching, I can remember at the end of my first year, I organised a sports presentation evening. But this is when at my first school, at Danecourt School.
Okay.
When I
So
started
now
there.
South
South Notts
Notts now.
Academy,
Yeah.
and I think they'd previously had a sports presentation evening, and it hadn't happened for a few years.
Right.
And they mentioned it, and I thought, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I organised that at the end of my first year, a newly qualified teacher, and about 300 or 400 people came to that at Cotgrave Miners Welfare, I think it was. And I think it gave.
I know it. Yeah.
You know it, yeah.
Played football there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really good event, and I really enjoyed organising it. But I think I'd always had that natural kind of inclination. If I saw something that needed doing, I was happy to get stuck in and have a go at leading things. So I think I always knew from my early days that I'd got that potential to be a leader. I wasn't sure at that point whether I wanted to go on and be a head teacher.
Yeah.
I think I was probably more focusing on being a good teacher, I suppose. And my next step was probably the head of department, head of PE. That was something that I definitely knew early on I wanted to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think you very rarely speak to a student in a school that says, I want to be a head teacher when I grow up. So, the pathway fascinates me really. Can you talk us through, you've just mentioned the head of department for PE. Can you talk us through the different roles that led you to becoming head teacher, and actually in which role did you think, right, that's it, I want to become a head teacher?
Yeah, so when I started at West Bridgeford School, when I was teaching you, I was a main scale PE teacher, so that was my main role. But I got my first taste of leadership at West Bridgeford School, and I was appointed after a year or so school sports coordinator.
Right.
And this was part of the Sports College initiative.
Yeah.
So Danecourt, as it was, South Notts College was the sports college in the local area.
Yeah.
And each of their family of schools, they had SSCOs, school sports coordinators. And that's what I did for West Bridgeford School. So I used to teach PE 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And then 2 days a week, I was in all the local primary schools helping them develop PE.
Right. Sounds like a good, nice role.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good role. And I learned a lot from it because I went into different schools and had to get used to how different schools run, meet different members of staff. And every school was slightly different with slightly different kind of priorities and commitments. And I think that was good. My first taste, I suppose, of managing people, really.
Yeah.
And it was good as well because I was able to go out and meet lots of community sports teams. So I remember making links with West Bridgeford Hockey Club and the Rugby Club, and I really enjoyed that, going and forging links. And it was all to get more children doing sport.
Yeah.
So that was something that I really enjoyed, and that gave me the experience to apply to be head of PE then. So when I left West Bridgeford School, I went over to Eastwood Comp, as it was, Eastwood Comprehensive School, to be head of PE. So that was my first proper, I suppose, mainstream leadership role as head of PE.
What year was that? What year would that
was 2005 I started
2005.
there.
Yeah.
So coming up for 20 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd have been 15.
Yeah.
I don't want to make you feel old.
I think I was still late 20s then when I probably did that. So that was my first taste of leadership, really, of leading the department. And I really enjoyed it. It was a small team, so I think there were 4 of us in the P department, so a really tight team. And the people that I work with then, I'm still in contact with now, and we still catch up every now and again, which is lovely. And I learned a lot then about managing people. And it's in some ways it's harder when you're managing such a small team, because you're working so closely together. You form good working relationships, and then it makes it more challenging.
Almost become friends.
Yeah, you become friends. And you're close colleagues and friends, and sometimes it's harder then when you have to have more challenging conversation. So I learned that, and managing qualifications as well. So I was in charge of GCSE PE and then A-level PE. So I learned that side of things. And also got my first taste then probably of timetabling, which I went on to do as a senior leader.
Okay.
Because I would be in charge of timetabling the PE department for the next year. And that was probably one of the first, I've got that first spark of actually I'm quite interested in this and how the school works. So I used to do that for the PE department. And I can remember having a chat with the timetable at the time who did the whole school and saying,
Yeah.
how's this work then? What's your process? How's it all fit together? And that was probably my first thinking about it, my first point when I started thinking,
Yeah.
oh, possibly I could
Something
do that one
sparked
day.
in the mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested
Yeah.
in how it all started to fit together. As well as leading the department there, I also taught A-level PE,
Yeah.
which is something I was really passionate about. And my specialist area was sports psychology.
Yeah.
And I'd done a lot of sports psychology at university.
Mm.
And I think there's a massive crossover from sports psychology into leadership psychology. And I think a lot of what I've probably learned since that point is there is a crossover. And I try and apply a lot of the principles of sports psychology to my own understanding of leadership psychology and how I try and lead. And
It's funny you
yeah,
say that, actually, because obviously, I've got a passion for sport and football
yeah,
in particular. And actually, whenever something happens, whether it's in the office or life or with my fiance, I always
yeah,
relate it back to a situation in football.
yeah, yeah,
And she says, we're not speaking about football here, but I feel like so many things can be related to team sport
yeah,
and the mindset and
yeah,
how we react to things. And
yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, so after I'd been head of PE for about 5 years, I think it was, the school did a bit of a restructure and they started putting faculties together. So the PE faculty was joined up with the humanities faculty.
Yeah.
And then they had directors of learning. So I became a director of learning for humanities and sport, as it was called then.
Right.
And that gave me my first taste of managing outside of PE.
Yeah.
So I
And that
think
was at West Bridgeford still.
no, this is at Eastwood.
This is Eastwood, okay.
Eastwood Comp. So that's
Yeah.
when I started there in 2005 as head of PE, and then
Right.
and then became the director of humanities and sport in 2010, I think.
Okay.
So and that was really useful because
Yeah.
then I went from managing a team of 4 staff to managing a team of 12 or 14 staff, I think it
Yeah.
was. But also it was learning how to manage other subjects. And I think as a leader in education, you have to have an understanding the further you go up of all subjects, really. Whilst you're not a specialist in those subjects, you've got to understand how the pedagogy of the subject and the organisation, the discipline of the subject.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me do that. And I learned a lot. So I was line managing history and geography and RE.
Yeah.
And whilst I'd got my own personal experiences of those, and I did A-level geography and history.
Yeah.
I've had and line managed them, so I learned a lot from that. And
Yeah, we come
yeah.
across a lot of teachers actually that they're a little bit older and they're always qualified in PE and geography.
Yeah, that is my
actually.
second subject,
Yeah,
geography.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
very, very common. Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, a common crossover. And I probably made quite a few mistakes in those years and tried to apply principles that perhaps had worked as head of PE and apply them to humanities and perhaps didn't work. So I probably made quite a few mistakes there. And I think that's important. You have to make mistakes
In order to grow.
learn and grow. Yeah. So I definitely learned a lot from that. And after a couple of years of doing that, I was then seconded to SLT by an incoming head teacher. And that's where I was seconded for 6 months or a year. And at the time, there was nobody to write the school timetable.
Right.
And I can remember there was an SLT meeting and we talked about the timetable and who was going to do it. And everybody looked down at the shoes, I think, and was avoiding eye contact with the head at the time.
Yeah.
And I naively put my hand up and said, I'll do it.
That spark came back to you from before.
Yeah. So I said, I don't mind writing the timetable, probably quite naively thinking I could do that, no problems.
Yeah.
And then obviously I had to put my money where my mouth was and learn how to be a timetabler.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the biggest challenges in my educational career.
Really?
Was delivering a timetable in the first year, because the whole school is relying on you.
Yeah.
You can't delay the deadline.
Yeah.
You've got to come back in
It needs to be
September,
ready.
and it has to be ready.
Yeah.
So I remember the summer holidays being quite a stressful period of time as I was frantically trying to get it all to work.
And I think that's something that probably goes unnoticed, really.
Yeah.
For people that, I don't know, obviously teachers get it, but people outside of the school environment, you don't really think about that all needs doing through the school holidays. And it
was tough. I remember spending a good couple of weeks in the summer holidays coming into school and making sure I delivered on that. So that was a challenge. But from that, I think it was really useful. And it meant I developed skills. It meant I was of good use to the senior team. And the secondment was then made into a permanent assistant head teacher role.
Yeah.
But it gave me an insight into the curriculum for the school, staffing, HR, and then also finance as well. So I
Yeah.
started to understand how the finances linked to the curriculum,
Mhm.
and part of that big picture.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from that,
Yeah.
and so at the time it was really stressful. 6 months trying to get the timetable done,
Yeah.
but it gave me an insight, and then from there each year I hoped I did it slightly better each year as my skills developed and my understanding developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really good. So that was my assistant headship, and then I was promoted to deputy head at Eastwood as well, Hall Park Academy as it became.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was there from 2005 right through to 2019.
Oh
So I
wow.
did 14 years there
Wow.
from head of PE right through to deputy head. And again, when you step up to deputy head, it's a whole other level of responsibilities
Yeah.
And a transition
It
into a new
literally
role.
sounds
Yeah,
like everything along the way is just
yeah,
adding up, adding up, adding up
yeah,
to get you to the point where you are now, really.
yeah,
I'm a great believer in any business that the person at the top should really understand and have an in-depth understanding of
yeah,
every role within that business. And it
yeah,
sounds like you've been through almost
yeah.
every role.
Yeah, I don't know if I've done it deliberately, but I've always
Mm.
tried to make sure I knew a role pretty well before I thought about going to the next role.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of worked in like 5 year cycles, really, that you
Mm.
do a role for 5 years
Yeah.
and really understand it. Not saying I was an expert in any of those roles,
Yeah.
but you're competent and confident,
Yeah.
and you understand that role pretty well before you start thinking about the next role.
Yeah.
Because I have seen some people go through roles really quickly, and not giving themselves enough time to learn the role really well, and
Yeah.
then it can be difficult
Yeah,
then.
then you maybe
Yeah,
feel out of your depth or
yeah,
not ready
yeah,
or yeah.
yeah. So I've tried to do that and allow myself like 5 years to learn the role pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so I'd done my 14 years at Hall Park,
Yeah.
but I felt like as a leader, I'd only led at that school.
Mm.
So most of my leadership positions were all in the same school, and I felt before at that point I'd done my MPQH,
Yep.
my headship qualification. I felt I'd never led in another school,
Yeah.
and I felt in order to be a head teacher, I needed to get out of what was my home environment, I suppose, a comfort zone in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'd been there so long and loved the school, really enjoyed working at Hall Park. I felt I needed to go and put my teeth somewhere else to see if I could take those skills that I'd learned there in a
Yeah.
different environment. And that's when I went, I did a sideways move to become deputy head at Granville Academy and over in Swadlincote.
And that was the main reason for that, to be in a different environment.
Yeah, to go and get new experiences in
Mm.
in a new trust, in a new context, in a new situation,
Yeah.
to see if I could have an impact there in a different leadership role,
Yeah.
in order to then prove to myself that I was then ready to be ahead.
Yeah.
So that was what I did, and that was a big wrench at the time because I'd been at Hall Park for so long and
Yeah.
was very
What?
happy there.
How did you
Yeah,
find that transition? What were the
yeah,
biggest challenges that you came across
yeah.
in that move?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough, and I really obviously I left Granville last summer to come here,
Mm.
and loved Granville, and again was very sad to leave there. I'd formed great relationships with staff and parents and students, most importantly. So it was tough to move there from Hall Park at the time. It took me time to settle in.
Mm.
I think it's for me education and probably all businesses. It's about relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'd got really strong relationships at Hall Park, and I had to start again at Granville. So I
Yeah.
didn't know the students' names. I
Yeah.
didn't know all the staff's names.
Yeah,
I
and I
didn't.
think one
Yeah,
thing you can't speed up is time.
yeah,
In order to develop good relationships,
yeah,
you can't just go and meet someone once and all of a sudden you've got a fantastic
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah, and I can remember that being a bit frustrating in my first year
Yeah.
because some staff didn't know me very well. They didn't trust me,
Mm.
whereas I felt like I'd gained people's trust at Hall Park.
Yeah.
So it took me time at Granville to get people to trust me, so that people knew that if I promised something, I would deliver that,
Yeah.
and I would always have the best interests of the students at heart. So it
Yeah.
took me a bit of time to do that.
Yeah.
Probably a year or so, I would say, to really kind of settle into the school.
Yeah.
And the school was going through a tough period at the time, so there were lots of challenging circumstances that meant
Yeah.
it was really tough for my first year there.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and we had all the challenges
What a crazy time that
yeah,
was.
yeah, I'd say 18 months of COVID and all of those changes and
Yeah.
bubbles and all the different testing that we had to do.
Yeah.
So a lot of my time, I felt like I was a logistics manager and just trying to keep the school open in
Yeah.
whatever form we could.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was just a crazy time, and
yeah,
I think having been through that, surely we can handle anything now
yeah,
moving forward.
yeah.
You know?
every situation you learn from, don't you?
Mm.
And I did things during that period of time that I'd never done before, but
Yeah.
you learn new skills and new experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like tags and CAGs when
Yeah.
students couldn't sit exams, so I led that and learned loads of new skills from that. And then over the 4 years at Granville, I realised that a lot of the things that I'd learned previously, what I was able to share there, and it helped students
Yeah.
have a better experience, but outcomes improved quite significantly.
Okay.
In the last couple of years, the school achieved really strong outcomes,
Great.
which is important, isn't it? Because the single for me, the single best thing you can do for a community is provide them with a school where children can be
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
It's about social mobility and giving children the chance. Education is so important for that, and that's my passion.
Yeah.
That it's children from whatever background can go to school and be successful, and it helps them in the next steps of their life and their journey. It gives them more life opportunities and life chances, I would say.
Yeah, I think ultimately, the main reason for why anyone should be within education is to have a positive impact on
Yeah,
young people. That's
yeah,
what we're all here for, isn't
yeah,
it? So,
yeah. And I felt
mm,
over the 4 years at Granville that I was able to really play a significant role in helping the school move forward.
yeah,
And when I left there, I was really sad to leave because it was a school where I was very happy,
yeah,
but felt like I had left the school in a much stronger position than perhaps when I arrived.
yeah,
So
yeah,
alongside a brilliant leadership team there.
yeah.
So it was good. It was just the right time at that point. I felt people had always said to me, when you'll get to a certain point when you're ready to be ahead,
Yeah.
and I'd reached that
And you just
point.
felt like all the experiences
Yeah,
have led up to
yeah,
this point, and now you're ready to take that step.
absolutely. Yeah, I felt confident
Yeah.
that I was ready to begin my first headship. Yeah,
Yeah, great. And I
yeah,
assume since you've started your first headship, you've continued learning. There's
yeah,
new things cropping up all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, absolutely. And my previous head teacher said that until you actually sit in the chair
Yeah,
and see what kind of things cross your desk, you don't really
yeah,
fully understand the role. And I think that's true.
yeah,
Lots of things in my first 6 months I've been kind of used to or got experience of, and then there's quite a few things that I'm learning,
yeah,
learning in the role and experiencing
yeah,
for the first time.
yeah,
But like I've always said, 5 year cycles really. By year two I'll be more confident in some of those
yeah,
things, and hopefully by year five
yeah,
I've got some good experiences behind me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah,
And if we go even further back to when you were at school, obviously I've
yeah,
spoke about some of the fond memories I've got of school
yeah,
and you as a teacher.
yeah,
And I think what is amazing about teaching is you're teaching people that hopefully remember the impact you've had on them
yeah,
forever for the rest of their life.
yeah.
Was there anyone back when you were at school or growing up that had an impact on you and actually made you think, yeah, you know what, I'm never going to forget that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I went to school locally, and I was fortunate that I had some
Mm.
really good teachers at school,
Where did
and
you go?
I was at Long Eaton School, so
Okay.
I grew up in Long Eaton
Yeah,
and
yeah.
went to Long Eaton School, and I really enjoyed my time at school and had some fantastic teachers. But there was an English teacher in particular, I won't name her name because that might not be fair on her. I
Yeah.
think she still lives locally, but she taught me in Key Stage 3 and I think in Year 8 and Year 9.
Mm.
And she was one of those where I think she understood me really well,
Yeah.
and probably at times I was perhaps coasting,
Mm.
and she recognised that I could do much better, but she very kind of cleverly persuaded me that I could do much better,
Yeah.
and would hold me to account when I handed in a piece of work.
In what way would she do that?
I think by giving me feedback on my work and
Yeah.
saying, I've seen you do. I think you could do this better. Do you remember when you did this piece of work previously? That was a fantastic standard. So she was really motivating
Yeah.
and encouraging me that I could do better, and would obviously show me how to make work better.
Yeah.
But just really, yeah, really encouraging and really positive and really calm. And yeah, she was a fantastic teacher. So much so that I went on when I picked my A levels. I did English literature as an A level,
Yeah.
and she taught me again then. So she taught me in Key Stage 3 and then taught me in sixth form,
Yeah.
and that kind of relationship carried on. And she pushed me and encouraged me, and was just a really supportive member of staff.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think I always say to people, I probably learned more from my A level English than perhaps any other qualification I did.
Yeah.
Over the 2 years of doing the course, I feel like it really developed my writing ability and
Yeah.
an understanding of the wider world. I can remember studying texts at sixth form, and discussing all the different themes
Yeah.
and underlying messages. It just opened my eyes up to
Yeah.
understanding the world
Yeah.
a
But
bit better.
you think it was thanks to her
Thanks to her,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
she was just a really inspirational teacher,
Yeah.
and yeah, I had a really strong relationship with her,
Yeah.
and so much so that initially I started an English degree at
Right.
university. Yeah,
Right.
initially I was going to go and do an English degree, and for a variety of reasons, I changed my mind after I did 3 months of an English degree, and it wasn't quite what I was expecting.
Right.
So I came back and worked for a year, and went back to university the following year,
Yeah.
which is when I did a 4-year teaching course. I did a 4-year secondary education degree,
Right.
which was in
Right.
PE and geography.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, if things had been slightly different, I could have ended up being an English teacher potentially
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
rather than PE.
And,
And
and obviously
yeah,
there's a theme with sport and
yeah,
PE, and
yeah,
all my memories from school is the football team
yeah,
and always playing football at breaks and everything else.
yeah,
And you're obviously passionate about that.
yeah.
Are you still involved? Tell me you're running the football team here.
No, sadly not. Sadly
No.
not. But I do keep getting yearnings to go and help out.
Yeah.
And when I walk past PE lessons, I can't help but pop in and just. I've already picked up a table tennis bat a few times and
Yeah.
gone and
Yeah.
had a little
Yeah.
game against a student.
Yeah.
But yeah, school sport here is really strong. We've got a really fantastic PE department who
Yeah.
are involved in lots of different sports. But I haven't been running the school football team at the
Yeah.
moment.
Not just yet.
Not yet, but perhaps in year 2 or year 3,
Yeah.
when I'm more familiar with the role, I might be able to do that again.
Yeah. Get the boots back on.
Yeah, it is something I've really enjoyed in the past.
Yeah. So are you doing any teaching at the moment, or are you just focused on the
Yeah,
headship?
I'm not currently
Mm,
teaching at the moment,
yeah.
which has been a bit strange 'cause it's the first
Yeah.
time in my career when I've not taught,
Yeah.
and I do miss that.
Yeah.
It's just a great way to get to know the students really well in the classroom. You,
Yeah.
you form different relationships with the students, so I do miss that, and it's something I might consider in year 2
Yeah.
and in year 3.
Yeah.
So I can still be in the classroom and understand what it's like to be in front of
Yeah.
the class regularly. So
Yeah.
I think that's something I'll consider in the next couple of
Yeah.
years. But
Great.
at the moment, I'm busy
Yeah, yeah,
getting my head around headship.
you're busy enough,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
And as your your teaching style progressed and you were learning different things in the classroom
yeah,
as your career was progressing,
yeah,
can you tell us, similar to the last question, really, was there any teachers or leaders within schools that you worked with, colleagues or
yeah,
other schools, that again flicked a switch in
yeah,
your head and thought, I'm going to use a little bit of that and I like that
yeah,
style? Just
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that side of things.
I think along. So this is my 24th year, something like that, of teaching, and I
Yeah,
think every school that I've worked at and everyone I've worked with, you pick up things.
yeah,
So in my first year as a newly qualified teacher at Danecourt, as it was, there was a really inspirational history teacher
right.
who was absolutely fantastic. And I can remember as an NQT, I was told to go and watch this teacher teach,
Yeah.
and I can remember standing and watching him teach, and he'd got every single student in the palm of his hand, and he
Yeah.
was an outstanding teacher. And I can remember standing there in awe of him and thinking, I'll never be that good.
Yeah.
And watching him, so I learned a lot from him, and I'm still in contact with him. And he went on to be a head teacher locally, actually.
Okay.
Retired a couple of years ago, but he was an inspirational teacher.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from him as well about staff, because he
Mm.
was the heart and soul of the school.
Yeah.
And we had like staff pantomimes, staff cricket teams, staff barbecues,
Yeah.
and I learned a lot about how you bring people together and create that sense of community.
Yeah.
So I definitely have learned a lot from him. And then I learned a lot while I was at Eastwood Hall
Yeah.
Park Academy, because I was there a period of time, and the school underwent massive transition kind of about halfway through my time there.
Yeah.
The school went from being a standard local authority school to joining a multi-academy trust.
Hmm.
And we initially were going to join one trust,
Yeah.
and then that didn't work out for a variety of reasons, and then we joined a different trust. But through both of those experiences, that I think I learned a tremendous amount there.
Yeah.
From worked with 2 or 3 different head teachers at that time, and executive heads and CEOs,
Yeah.
and I think the biggest things I probably learned was about high expectations,
Yeah.
and about what that actually looked like, having high expectations of students
Yeah.
and also staff, and what that translated to on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that I picked that up from through my experiences there in terms of high expectations of behaviour,
Yeah.
of learning,
Yeah.
and I think I think previously I probably felt like I'd had high expectations, but then I'd seen it at a whole new level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I can remember a talk where the CEO of one of the trusts talked about expectations of behaviour, and the bar is here,
Yeah,
and we don't lower the bar for any student. We help
yeah,
the students reach the bar,
yeah.
and I remember that
This is the
really,
standard we need
yeah,
to be
this is the
at.
standard for everybody,
Yeah.
and because behaviour is massively important in the school. If you've got to have really strong behaviour in order for students to learn well and achieve well.
Yeah,
So I definitely learned a lot about that, and high
yeah,
expectations. I feel like I've always had high expectations of myself, and I've always wanted myself to give a really good account of myself every day.
yeah,
But it was how you had that as a leader, how
yeah.
you led those high
Do
expectations.
you think it's the small things that
Yeah,
make the big things? You know, for example, you're walking around school, a student's got the shirt untucked,
yeah, yeah.
tuck it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Those sort of
It
things.
starts with that, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
starts with how you present yourself. It starts
yeah,
with like the Fernwood students here are fantastic and incredibly polite.
yeah,
That's part of the school culture here that's been established over time.
yeah,
So students will hold it. If I hold a door open for a student, they will say thank you, sir, and
yeah,
it's those manners as well, isn't it? And
yeah, yeah,
all the basics add together, don't they,
yeah,
to contribute to high expectations. But I think it was also in the classroom as well that if a student hadn't completed a piece of work to a standard that you were happy with,
yeah,
then they did that work again, or they
yeah,
and it's really, as soon as you have high expectations of students, they raise their game to
yeah,
meet those high expectations.
yeah, yeah,
And I think over that period of 3 or 4 times, as the school got rapidly better, our expectations got higher and higher.
yeah,
And as soon as we raised the bar, the students met it.
yeah,
And I think that was something that I really learned there, that I've
yeah,
tried to take into my leadership after leaving that school.
yeah.
So I learned a lot from that. Yeah,
Sounds great. Not
yeah,
to bring it back to football again, but it
yeah,
sounds like the Sir Alex Ferguson method.
yeah,
Here are the standards, and we've got to,
yeah,
with no exceptions
yeah,
for anyone. This is how
yeah,
we're going to work.
yeah. And you hold yourself to account, but you hold each other to account.
Yeah,
And there was that culture amongst the staff where we
yeah,
were all pushing each other to be the best we could be.
yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
and I learned a lot from that.
So leading on from that, then obviously you're now managing a huge team when you include the students and the staff,
Yeah,
and it must be really, really hard to keep everyone on the same page, striving towards the same goal,
yeah,
togetherness, developing the culture.
yeah,
How do you even start? As a head in your position, how do you start trying to develop
yeah,
the culture you want and
yeah,
move in the direction that you
yeah.
want?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate here that there is a really, really strong culture.
Yeah.
So as a new head teacher, I've come into a school where there is a strong culture, that the school achieves really well academically,
Mm.
but beyond that, the personal development of the school is really strong, and students get a range of experiences here outside of the classroom as well.
Yeah.
So I've inherited a school with a fantastic culture, which has been established over years. However, in every organisation, even if it's really successful, it has to evolve and grow.
Yeah.
And that's my job. It's the next stage, isn't it, of development? I think it comes down to communication as
Yeah.
much as possible. So we have weekly briefings. So we have a senior leadership briefing every day. So as a senior team, we meet every day and we talk about day-to-day operational things. But we also
Yeah.
have 2 weekly meetings where we talk about strategic priorities for the school.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in that, are you leading that every time? Are other members of SLT leading that?
Yeah,
How does it work?
it varies. It varies.
Yeah.
So I will often lead items in that, but I also encourage all members of SLT to lead items in that, and
Yeah.
people will present priorities
Yeah.
and discussion points in their own respective areas that they lead.
Yeah.
So it's a variety. It's got to be everybody contributing in the senior team, and everyone
Yeah.
bringing different ideas to the table, and different specialisms. And then we have whole staff briefings a couple of mornings a week,
Yeah.
where I can share updates, and the deputy heads will join me with that, and the assistant head teachers. I think it's important for staff to know where the school's heading to, and
Yeah.
keep them informed as much as possible. And then assemblies form a really good opportunity to share priorities with students as well, and get those
Yeah.
messages out. And so I think communication is the key thing.
Yeah.
Parents are obviously a really important part of the school community, and since starting here, I've tried to communicate really regularly with parents. We have a school newsletter.
I was going to say,
now.
how do you do that? Because there's
Yeah,
so many
yeah,
parents. How do you do it?
There's probably a few thousand parents.
Yeah.
So we have a half-term newsletter,
Okay.
which had some nice feedback from parents about, where we summarise everything that's happened and celebrate all the
Yeah.
achievements of our students in that half term.
Yeah.
And that's really helped because there's so many amazing things happen here,
Yeah.
but parents don't always get to know what's happening and what's on offer here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. As a new head teacher, I've done a few meet the head teacher events as well
Okay.
in my first term. So I did one for year 7,
Yeah.
one for 8 and 9 students, or
Yeah.
the parents of 8 and 9 students, and one for the parents of 10 and 11, year
Okay.
10 and 11 students. And they've been really well attended. So I've done those in the hall and done a bit of a presentation to parents about who I am and
Yeah.
what my kind of values are and my vision.
Yeah.
And then the parents have shared questions as well, and I've answered questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really keen that parents can feel comfortable coming into the school and be part of our community.
Yeah.
We've developed quite a few working parties as well, where parents
Okay.
come in and join us and join members of staff here to work on key issues.
Okay.
So most recently, we've just set up an EDI working party,
Okay.
and we've had a number of parents volunteer to come and join us for that,
Yeah.
which has been brilliant. So we had the first meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then over time, some of our students are going to join that too.
Okay.
That's something I'm really excited about, because that's one of my key kind of objectives for the school. I want all students, regardless of their background, to feel like they belong here, that they're heard here, that they're valued,
Yeah.
and that their differences are celebrated. I want every child here, regardless of any individual
Yeah.
circumstances, feels that their differences are celebrated.
Yeah.
So that's a big priority for us, is that, and there's been lots of good work before I started here that I'm going to build
Yeah.
on and complement, hopefully.
Yeah, fantastic. And can you share, a couple of other examples of some exciting things happening with the school, other things that you're looking forward to? I'm sure there might even be some parents listening, people that are really interested
Yeah.
in the school. Just share with us, a couple of other things that are going to be happening or you've got coming up at the school.
Yeah. Well, I suppose at this time of year, with us heading quickly towards the exam season.
Yep.
So we're busy preparing for the exam season to get students ready, our year 11 students.
Yep.
So we've been adding some after school academic support this half term to get them ready for their mock exams.
Great.
And then we're doing Easter school, the first couple of days of the Easter holidays for our year 11, so
Okay.
that they can come into school. I'm very fortunate. Lots of staff have volunteered to do sessions in the first couple of days of the holidays. So
Right.
we've got some revision support for that. And then in terms of the exam season, we're offering we're delivering masterclasses for students, where we suspend the year 11 timetable, and students will be able to take part in masterclasses the day before their exam.
Okay.
So that's something that's new for this year, and we're planning that behind the scenes. And it's all about helping students get as much support as possible, so that they can be successful and be happy with their results come August, to help them go on to college and sixth form and apprenticeships.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a sixth form here,
Right.
so it's a big part of our job, is to make sure they're prepared for that next step in their education.
Yeah, and it sounds like some of those things you're putting in place, it would have helped me as a student, absolutely, because I was very, very conscientious of, my performance and doing well, to the point where I would actually hate exams, and I felt so nervous going into exams.
Yeah.
And I always got through them, and but I always had to think, right, how can I almost calm yourself down a little bit? 'Cause everyone handles things differently. Some people don't mind exams, other people, really don't like exams and prefer the coursework side of things. What's your take on that, and the balance of exams and coursework?
Yeah, you're right. It's a really tricky balance, but it's an important balance to get right. That the message that I've delivered to year 11s this year in assembly is about your best is always good enough, and to not compare yourself to other students as well. As long as the students have done their best throughout, it's not just about the next 3 months. It's about the last 5 years here, really. Working hard, making the most of opportunities, and preparing and accessing the support that's available. If they've done that, and then we can't ask them to do any more, and nor can they ask themselves to do any more, as long as they've done their best. So that's been the message that I've repeated several times. It's your best is good enough, and because it is pressured for year 11 students, and as you'll know from your experience in schools, mental health is a real important topic in schools, and young people are under so much pressure for lots of reasons, that we want to manage that for them and support them. And we're very fortunate here that we've got a number of staff. We have wellbeing mentors who part of their role is supporting students who are possibly anxious or concerned about all kinds of things, not just exams.
Yeah.
So we've got a really strong pastoral system here.
Has that been ongoing for a while? Because obviously there's been an increase since COVID. I think I've spoken a couple of podcasts about social media and the impact that has on mental health.
Yeah.
Is that something that's fairly new for you as a school, or things that you're putting in place, or has it been around for a while?
Some of it, most of it predates me. It's not something that I've introduced. So the wellbeing mentors have been in position for about a year, I think now.
Okay.
But it's something the school has very consciously added to our support in light of the increased need really from students. So it is in terms of like a wellbeing strategy and mental health strategy. We've got a lead mental health leader for the whole school, who does a fantastic job. We have lots of drop-in sessions for students, lots of ways that they can either self-refer or staff can refer them, and with lots of signposting to support available as well. And it's really important, isn't it? Our first job is to keep children safe and happy and look after them, even before we get to the academic achievement.
I think it's so important, not only in schools but also in workplaces, but ultimately it starts from school. Understanding the issues that you might face, the best ways in dealing with them, because at any age you can come across these issues.
We've got a really strong we call PSHE, personal development here. So that all students have that on their timetable as part of their curriculum, right through from year 7 to year 11. And the PD curriculum, the personal development curriculum, focuses quite a lot on mental health and well-being, and strategies to manage those as well, because it's about developing those strategies, isn't it? So that when you leave school and you're out in the wider world, that you've got those skills, because everyone experiences pressures, don't they, at different times of their life.
Absolutely.
So it's important to try and learn those skills early, I think. And,
definitely.
And have a culture where we're open to ask for help. There should be no stigma attached to asking for help.
I think the most important thing is being able to speak about it and feeling comfortable enough to speak about it. And it sounds like you've really got a supportive environment where anyone can do that within the school.
Absolutely. It's a big part of the school culture.
Great. And just before we move on to the quick fire questions at the end, I just want to ask, we've got a lot of people that will be listening that either work in education, want to work in education, want to progress and have a similar journey to what you've had throughout education. Can you just tell us what you look for in a member of staff? So let's just say someone wants to join Fernwood as a member of staff. They come to interview with you. What are you looking for, and what qualities are you looking for from that person to be a good fit for your school?
Good question. I think the first thing is probably emotional intelligence, because like I said earlier on when we were chatting, it's about relationships. And I think emotional intelligence is so important in establishing relationships as a teacher with students, but also with colleagues as well. So emotional intelligence, and I think to be a really successful teacher and leader, you've got to enjoy working with young people and with children. And I genuinely really do. No 2 days are ever the same. Today I've been out at lunchtime on duty, and I love the students that come over and have a chat with me, and they talk about all different types of topics. And
well, when I arrived, he was hammering it down out there, and you were still out there on the gates, and you can tell you enjoy it.
I do really enjoy that. So I think anyone that's come into work here, I would want them to really enjoy spending time with young people, and taking pleasure from seeing them develop and grow into young adults, and being successful. And that's the real joy of being a teacher. I would look for people who are prepared to work hard, because teaching's a fantastic career, but it does require hard work at times. So I would want people who can work hard, and I don't mind doing that. Team players is really important. Like you said, we're a big school, 150 staff, and it's really brilliant when you get people who are team players, and we've got some fantastic staff here who are always prepared to muck in and help out other colleagues, or support another colleague with a task or with a situation, and that's what you need. You need a really strong team and everyone to play their part in that. But I think also an openness. I like it when people are open. Nobody is perfect or the finished article, myself included, definitely. And I like people who can be reflective, I'm fine with people making mistakes because we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I like it when people are saying, "Oh, if I was to do that again, I would change this, and this is what I'm working on." It's all about personal development, isn't it?
Yeah.
And growing and developing and
Yeah,
being open to that.
and quite
Yeah,
often when I have similar conversations with other people about, their business or even my business,
yeah,
you often just know when someone's going to be a good fit
yeah,
and going to work well with the students. And
yeah,
a question I always get back is, yeah, but how do you know?
yeah,
And I say, well, you just know, you get
yeah,
the feel for that person.
yeah,
But could you break down, because it's really hard in an
yeah,
interview
yeah,
to recognize all those qualities that you've just mentioned
yeah,
in, let's just say, an 1 hour interview.
yeah,
What are the things you look for in that interview
yeah.
that I guess gives you signposts to actually, yes, this person's going to be a good fit for our culture?
Yeah, I think, like you say, you do get a gut feeling, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
With people, and I like to think I'm good at kind of reading people and getting to know what they're really like. I like it when people are authentic,
Yeah,
and that would be my advice: be yourself,
yeah,
rather than trying to be something that isn't. Perhaps it's a version of you. I think
yeah,
to be authentic is really important.
yeah,
I like it in interviews when people give examples.
yeah,
So anybody can use words to describe how amazing they are,
yeah,
but if it's not backed up with examples,
yeah,
I think then it's not as impactful unless it's got an example attached to it. I would also say as well, it's about being reflective as well. I look for that in interviews. I look
yeah,
for people who are self-aware,
yeah,
can say this is where I'm at, this is what I'm good at, and this is my next steps. So I really like that openness
yeah,
and those examples. And it's about how you present yourself. I think
yeah,
I like naturally. I warm to really positive body language.
yeah.
Someone who comes in and is upbeat
I think
and
it's so important.
yeah,
Yeah,
presents themselves really positively. They smile and
yeah,
they're enthusiastic and really keen to be there
yeah,
because it's a two-way relationship, isn't it? You want somebody to come into your school for a job who really knows the school well, has done some research,
yeah,
and is really keen to come and work there.
yeah,
And I think you can communicate that really well in an interview and give yourself an
yeah.
advantage. Yeah,
Definitely. Well, thanks
yeah,
for sharing
yeah,
those tips.
yeah. No problems.
Just to finish before we do go to the quick
Yeah,
fires, can you just give us your biggest highlight that you've had so far in
yeah,
your education career? And it could be the impact that you've had on a student,
yeah,
something that's happened in your career, a day
yeah,
that you really remember. What's been
yeah.
your biggest highlight so far?
Wow, that's a tough
I put
question.
you on the
That.
spot there with that one, haven't I?
Yeah, that's a tough question. There's a variety really. I mean, I've had lots of probably situations with students where it's particularly you see them achieve something,
Yeah,
and you've seen them go through all the struggles behind the scenes, and that they've. Like, I've worked with students before who've had really tough times, perhaps in Key Stage 4 and lots of challenges outside of school,
mm,
and to see them on results day when they've got results they're really happy with,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and to stand there, you feel very proud of them
yeah,
when they've achieved something despite all the difficulties they've faced. So I think they're some of my proudest
yeah,
moments.
yeah. Results days, good
Yeah,
days, good days.
yeah. So I think that those, as a leader, it's been brilliant to be part of two schools previously where the school has gone from underperforming really
Mm,
and 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 perhaps not achieving the outcomes it should do, to being part of a leadership team that has improved things
yeah,
and on when you achieve results, exam results, then they're not your results as a teacher, they're the students' results. But it's nice to feel you've been part of giving them the environment and the framework to be successful.
yeah,
So as a leader, that's been really
yeah,
successful, and then it's great to meet people like yourself who you've
yeah,
taught,
yeah,
and I because I live locally and I've taught locally. It's great to bump into people and see them
yeah,
10, 15 years later after school and
yeah,
everything they've achieved.
yeah,
So that's been really nice as a teacher. You take I'm not saying that your success, for example, is down to me. I'm not saying that at all.
yeah.
But it's really nice to see that people have gone on to be really
Yeah,
successful.
but
Yeah,
ultimately, as a teacher, I guess you're impacting so many lives and so many
yeah,
students, and it does all add up. Yeah, of course, you've
yeah,
still got to do the hard work, but your
yeah,
experiences add up, and you learn things along the way. And yeah,
yeah,
I think anyone teaching and going out into classrooms every day should be thinking about that every day and the impact that they're having.
yeah.
And ultimately, like I said before, that's why we're working with young people. So
Yeah. And I've had a few ex-students recently contact me via different means and
yeah,
just check in with me and say, this is what I'm up to now. And it's
yeah,
brilliant. It's brilliant
yeah,
to hear to hear of students, going on to be really successful. Yeah, so
Good.
that's really nice.
Well, no doubt there'll be a lot more success to come here
Yeah,
at Fernwood as well.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to finish with
Yeah.
some quick fire questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. Number one, which book, if any, would you recommend?
I've read quite a few books in terms of like leadership over the last 10 years or so, but one that I really liked was The Chimp Paradox.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I've not read
No.
it, but I've
Yeah.
heard a lot about it.
Yeah, by Professor Steve Peters. Yeah, Professor Steve Peters, who's a sports psychologist.
Right.
Worked with lots of professional sports people. But I think it gave me a really good understanding of yourself and how your brain works, and different, you use different parts of your brain in how that translates to your emotions and how you respond, and makes you perhaps even more aware of how you self-regulate and present yourself, I think.
Great.
So
Chimp Paradox.
The Chimp Paradox. Yeah, that's a good read. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Number two, favourite football team?
Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
So I'm, like I say, born and bred in Nottingham, and a massive Forest fan, and still get to games as much as I can when I can get
Still
tickets.
go,
yeah, I was there last Saturday and the previous Saturday.
Yeah.
So
They needed the win.
yeah. So a great win against West Ham at the weekend,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can stay up this season.
Long may it continue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number three, favourite quote?
I would say that probably one I use quite a lot is life is not a rehearsal, and I'm not sure who said it.
Yeah.
It's been said in various ways, but it's that thought of make every single day count, every hour count. There's no waiting around for life to start.
Yeah.
It's try and squeeze as much in you can every single day. Make
whilst
sure.
we're here.
Yeah, so that's probably one I try and live my life by, and try and encourage students to do that too. So yeah.
Great. Number four, if you could have dinner with three famous people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Good question. Brian Clough is one of my heroes, and unfortunately I never got to meet him. So I would love to meet Brian Clough and chew the fat with him.
Yeah.
As well as football, I'm really into my music. Okay. So I love the Beatles, and I would love to meet John Lennon. So I'd love to sit and have Brian Clough and John Lennon. And then for the third one, when I was very small, my granddad passed away when I was 6 months old, so I never got to meet my granddad.
Right.
So if that was allowed, and he's not famous, but it would be great to meet him, because I've often wondered what he was like as a man and things. Yeah. So yeah, that would be my dinner party. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Number five, favorite school subject. I know this one surely.
Yeah, PE would obviously be up there.
Yeah.
Geography, I loved. I really enjoyed geography. And then it would be English or history. I would say they were like my favourite subjects at school. They were the ones I was best at. Yeah.
Great. Number six, name an app that you just can't live without.
Good question. I would probably say I use one called Podcast Addict.
Okay.
Which is fitting, isn't it, for being on a podcast? Yeah. So I use that a lot for when I'm driving to school. I always listen to podcasts. I used to listen to radio a lot, but I tend to listen to podcasts now.
And it's just a mixture of.
It's just a portal for getting your podcasts through.
Okay.
So I think other people use what's the iTunes equivalent?
Spotify is what I use,
Spotify,
or iTunes. Yeah. So
yeah, I use Podcast Addict quite a lot. That's
cool.
my app.
You might have just answered this next one, but number seven, your favourite thing to listen to on the way to work to get you motivated for the day.
So yeah, I've listened to a lot of podcasts the last few years. I listened to another podcast called the High Performance Podcast.
Yeah, I listen to it a lot. Yeah.
And that has been fantastic. I think over the last 3 or 4 years of listening to that. I think I started listening to it in COVID.
Yeah.
I think it started during that period, and we all had a bit more time to do things.
They have some great guests. I listened. I'm a Man United fan, but they had McTominay on the other day. I listened to that one.
I've not heard that one yet.
Yeah, it's good.
But I can remember listening to Clive Woodward on there. And Eddie Jones, and loads of famous people, not just from sport but from business and culture and the arts.
Yeah,
every single one I've learned a lot from.
Yeah,
and I did keep a little notebook of like my takeaways, as they say, don't they? My 5 takeaways from each podcast.
Yeah.
And I've learned lots from that.
Yeah.
And that definitely, some of the things I learned from there helped me in the interview process here.
Yeah.
Some of the psychology tips that they gave and the preparation tips that they gave certainly helped me. Yeah.
Good answer. We had another head teacher that said Capital FM and all the tunes on that. So
well, I would say I probably mix it up between the High Performance pod and things like that, and then the Forest podcast I listen to. Yeah. So I do listen to a lot of Forest podcasts too.
Great. Number 8, your favourite film?
Yeah, this would probably go back to the 90s. The Shawshank Redemption was
Yeah.
one of my, have you seen it?
Yeah, great
That's
film.
probably my favourite film. Yeah, either that or I loved Pulp Fiction as well. That was
Yeah,
a great movie.
classics.
Yeah.
Number 9, as a head teacher, if you could have any superpower, what
Yeah.
would it be?
Oh, I think it would be the ability to extend time. So I got an
Yeah,
extra 2 or 3 hours each day,
yeah,
or the ability to be in more than one place at once. I don't know if they're superpowers,
yeah.
but so I could clone myself and be in a couple of places at once.
Both would be useful.
Yeah, definitely.
And then finally, number 10, can you leave us with one piece of advice for someone looking to get into teaching?
Yeah, I think it goes back to probably something I've said earlier on. It's about having that passion for working with young people. I think
Yep.
that's if you haven't got that passion and you don't enjoy seeing children be successful, then perhaps education isn't for you really. So I think that
Yep.
would be the big key thing I think teachers need to have.
Yep.
And then once you are a teacher, it's being self-aware, being open to feedback and growing and developing and learning.
Yep.
And never stop learning. There's no such thing as the perfect teacher or the perfect leader.
Yep.
It's having that open mindset and growing and developing
Great.
and learning from others. Yeah.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
really good piece of advice. And
Yeah.
that concludes the conversation today.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us. There's some real gems in there that I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from. So thanks very much.
Thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.